right. Hello, friends. Ryan, Lee, welcome. How's audio, video connection, all that? Hello, Dee Dee, welcome. Maria, welcome. All right. Hello, Proud, welcome. Let's get started. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. All right. So the sutta that I want to discuss today is perhaps in Western circles one of the most repeated and badly translated of all suttas. And we'll go over why it's kind of appealing, or at least badly translated is appealing to Westerners. I remember just myself coming across this translation and realizing later how badly translated it was. But this is actually quite a profound sutta. Both the first half and the second half have a lot to reflect on and to contemplate. So we'll go through the sutta. So while I am going through the sutta, we'll have time for question and answers afterwards. But if you have a question that pops up while I'm reading through, please do type it in the chat. And if it's short enough, I'll answer it right then and there. I do check the chat occasionally as I'm going through the sutta readings. Also tell me how easy or not easy it is to read the sutta on the screen. I can always, well, it seems like it's probably large enough. All right. So let's read. Now this is on Sutta Central. It's called, most people know this sutta as Kalama Sutta. That's how I knew it. But it's actually not called that at all. It's really called Kesamuttisutta in the Thai Pali, or the Kesaputtiya Sutta in the Sri Lankan. So if on Sutta Central, you'll see it as Kesamuttisutta. So I have heard, at one time the Buddha was wandering in the land of the Kosalans, together with a large sangha of mendicants, when he arrived at the town of the Kalamas named Kesamutta. The Kalamas of Kesamutta heard, "It seems the ascetic Gautama, a Sakyan, gone forth from a Sakyan family, has arrived at Kesamutta. He has this good reputation. That blessed one is perfected, fully awakened Buddha, etc." This is the qualities of the Buddha. If you've chanted the Itipiso Bhagava, then you have chanted the qualities of the Buddha. And they are so here ellipsed by Bhante Sujato. It's good to see such perfected ones. Then the Kalamas went up to the Buddha. Before sitting down to one side, some bowed, some exchanged greeting and polite conversation, some held up their joined palms toward the Buddha, some announced their name and clan, while some kept silent. Seated to one side, the Kalamas said to the Buddha. So we have just a little bit of a kind of example of the culture, the various ways that some may, or the various levels of respect one might give somebody. And so, which is, basically, bowing and Anjali and all these things, or just coming up and announcing your name and clan, which sounds could be like a little funny or a little off, but this is how, just randomly going up to somebody and announcing who you are. But these are the various ways that people engaged with someone who they respected or did not respect. All right. Now they asked, "There are, sir, some ascetics and Brahmins who come to Kesamutta. They explain and promote their own doctrine while they attack, badmouth, disparage, and smear the doctrines of others. Then some other ascetics and Brahmins come to Kesamutta. They too explain and promote only their doctrine while they attack, badmouth, disparage, and smear the doctrines of others. So, sir, we're doubting and uncertain." And the doubt is, well, I wonder who of these respected ascetics and Brahmins speaks the truth and who speaks falsehood. And so the Buddha responds, "It is enough, Kalamas, for you to be doubting and uncertain. Doubt has come up in you about an uncertain matter." Welcome, Michelle and Bhumika. So, for you to kind of understand what's happening here in this sutta, at the time of the Buddha, people didn't go to monasteries to hear the teachings. What happened was, they lived in their village. And due to the Samana tradition of men and women who checked out of regular society to try for enlightenment, and they had various different teachers and various different perspectives on what exactly you do there. The Jains also came out of this Samana tradition, and they would be alms gatherers, so they would go into the village every day for food. And so what you had was this culture, this tradition of different samanas just showing up. On Monday it's a Buddhist, on Tuesday it's a Jain, on Thursday it's an Ajivaka. Who the heck knows who's coming on Friday? So you have this this experience of every day somebody comes and says, well, this is the only true way. All the other ones are false. Wouldn't you be confused? Who to listen to? So this is the situation that the Kalamas are in. Of course, they have great respect for all of these people because they're all seen as well-respected monastics or teachers in their well-respected doctrines. So as the Buddha says, it's enough for you to be confused, for sure. right, let's continue. Doubt has come up in you about an uncertain matter. Now here is the famous paragraph that I said is very often badly mistranslated and misunderstood. Please, Kalamas, the Buddha says, don't go by oral transmission, don't go by lineage, don't go by testament, don't go by canonical authority, don't rely on logic, don't rely on inference, don't go by reason train of thought, don't go by the acceptance of a view after deliberation, don't go by the appearance of competence, and don't think this ascetic is our respected teacher. But when you know for yourselves these things are unskillful, blameworthy, criticized by sensible people, and when you undertake them they lead to harm and suffering, then you should give them up. So let's break this down. What the Buddha is saying here is, don't just blindly go with any of these things. Right? Don't go by oral transmission. Don't go just, so this well-respected teacher says such and such. Don't just automatically accept it. The Buddha literally teaches us how to do this in the suttas. The Buddha says, when you have heard something I say, don't just automatically accept it and reject it. Right? Or when you heard something another teacher says, don't just automatically accept it and reject it. Pair it up against the suttas, pair it up against teachings that you've heard before. Right? Investigate it. Contemplate it. Don't just automatically accept or reject. Right? This is how the Buddha taught us when we hear a teacher. Oh, okay. Let me see. Let me investigate. Let me contemplate. Let me understand. This is a wise way of accepting information. And so you don't jump to a conclusion one way or another. Right? By oral transmission. The oral transmission would be, the suttas have been transmitted for 2,600 years. You should just blindly listen to whatever they say. No, don't do that. Or by lineage. My lineage is from such and such, from this person all the way back to the Buddha, so you should just listen to whatever I say. No. Right? Don't, and this one, don't rely on logic. Right? The first translation I ever heard of this was all these other things. Don't just go by this, but only if it agrees with your logic and it. And I was like, oh, okay, this is very rational. This sounds very nice. Until I saw a real translation, and it was, oh yeah, don't even trust your logic either. Don't just automatically trust, because out of inference or out of logic, I've deduced this. A lot of people, because of their logic intelligence, think that they have wisdom, and those are two different things. So logic does not equal wisdom necessarily. So you don't just automatically accept that this is here. Or by reason train of thought. Don't go by acceptance of a view after deliberation. Don't go by the appearance of competence. So Bhante Jay seems like he's a really good Dhamma teacher. He sounds really good and he says things that are impactful to me. Don't just automatically trust what I say. Right? And don't think this ascetic is our respected teacher. So again, it's not necessarily saying that don't do any of these, period. It's just a blind acceptance of these things it's important to understand. But even still, when you know for yourself, so the Buddha is kind of the Buddha is leading the Kalamas in an investigation right now. That's what he's doing. Because if all these other things, there can be confusion. Because my written documents say this, and they go back 18 generations. Well, my written documents say this, and they go back 19 generations. All of these ways can be used to convince you, and that may or may not be true. But when you know for yourselves, these things are unskillful, blameworthy, criticized by the wise. When you undertake them, they lead to harm and suffering, then you should give them up. So this is a direct understanding. You realize, oh, these actions, these things, they kind of lead to my harm and the harm of others. They're kind of blameworthy by the society, and also wise people that I trust would not agree with doing this. Right? So then you should give them up. This is important, right? Because the Buddha just did say, don't just go by such and such and such. But in the next line, he says, these that you understand for yourselves, these things are unskillful, blameworthy, criticized by the wise. So right there, the Buddha is actually telling us to make sure that we do check our wisdom and our insight against somebody who we trust that is wiser than us. Because we might be wrong. We might be thinking that we're all wise and insightful, but we're on the wrong track. And so this is why even the Buddha says, be an island unto yourself. Right? Know for yourself all of these things. But throughout the suttas, there's also an approved by the wise. Right? So the Buddha is not saying, don't listen to anybody. Just only with what you say, what you know. You can be way off. At Bhavana Society for years and years, when we had retreats, especially jhana retreats, boy, there's some of the people who came who claimed that they were serious meditators, they were quite deluded. Right? So just because you think you have wisdom and insight and stuff like that, you might. But you could also be deluded. Right? So you should have wise people who you trust. That again, you don't just believe just blindly believe what they say, but at the very least you say, okay, Bhante such and such and Bhante such and such and Bhante such and such, they have disagreements on specific things, but they do at least agree that this is probably a bad thing to do. We shouldn't do this. And I also see that when I've done this in the past, it's just caused me suffering and harm to others. So I don't want to do this. And so the Buddha is leading the Kalamas through this kind of investigation. And now he continues. What do you think, Kalamas? Does greed come up in a person for their welfare or harm? And they respond, harm, sir. A greedy individual overcome by greed kills living creatures, steals, commits adultery, lies, and encourages others to do the same. A wise person is not going to encourage others to do those things. Very unwise, very untrustworthy people. So is this for their lasting harm and suffering? Yes, sir, they say. What do you think, Kalamas? Does hate come up in a person for their welfare or harm? Harm, sir. A hateful individual overcome by hate kills living creatures, steals, commits adultery, lies, and encourages others to do the same. Is that for their lasting harm and suffering? Yes, sir. So what the Buddha is bringing them through here is an investigation of the three unskillful roots, lobha, dosa, and moha, which incidentally are also the three things that essentially are part of us in being stuck in the samsaric state. The Buddha's definition for nibbana, when asked, is the abandoning of greed, hatred, and delusion. So the Buddha is kind of going right to the root here, giving them a kind of a line of questioning, a line of investigation. What do you think? Is this beneficial or not? What do you think, Kalama? Does delusion come up in a person for their welfare or harm? Harm, sir. A deluded individual, overcome by delusion, kills living creatures, steals, commits adultery, lies, and encourages others to do the same. Is that for their lasting harm and suffering? Yes, sir. What do you think, Kalamas? Are these things skillful or unskillful? Unskillful, sir. Blameworthy or blameless? Blameworthy, sir. Criticized or praised by sensible people? Criticized by, well, Bhante Sujato translates this as sensible people, but usually it's translated as wise. So wise people. When you undertake them, do they lead to harm and suffering or not? Or how do you see this? When you undertake them, they lead to harm and suffering. That's how we see it. So, Kalamas, when I said, please, don't go by oral transmission, don't go by lineage, don't go by testament, don't go by canonical authority, don't rely on logic, don't rely on inference, don't go by reason train of thought, don't go by acceptance of a view after deliberation. Don't go by the appearance of competence, and don't think the ascetic is our respected teacher. But when you know for yourselves, these things are unskillful, blameworthy, criticized by the wise, and when you undertake them they lead to harm and suffering, then you should give them up. That's what I said, and this is why I said it. Welcome, Manu, Jayantha, Michelle, Wasabi. All right, continuing on. Please, Kalamas, don't go by oral transmission. Don't go by lineage, by testament, or by canonical authority. Don't rely on logic. Don't rely on inference. Don't go by reason train of thought. Don't go by acceptance of a view after deliberation. Don't go by the appearance of competence. And don't think this ascetic is our respected teacher. But when you know for yourselves these things are skillful, blameless, praised by sensible people, and when you undertake them they lead to welfare and happiness, then you should acquire them and keep them. What do you think, Kalamas? Does contentment come up in a person for their welfare or harm? Welfare, sir. An individual who is content, not overcome by greed, doesn't kill living creatures, steal, commit adultery, lie, or encourage others to do the same. Is that for their lasting welfare and happiness? Yes, sir. What do you think, Kalamas? Does love come up in a person for their welfare or harm? Does understanding come up in a person for their welfare or harm? Is that for their lasting welfare and happiness? Yes, sir. What do you think, Kalamas? Are these things skillful or unskillful? Skillful, sir. Blameworthy or blameless? Blameless, sir. Criticized or praised by the wise? Praised by the wise, sir. When you undertake them, do they lead to welfare and happiness or not? Or how do you see this? When you undertake them, they lead to welfare and happiness. That's how we see this. So, Kalamas, when I said, please, don't go by oral transmission, don't go by lineage, don't go by testament, don't go by canonical authority, don't rely on logic, don't rely on inference, don't go by reason train of thought, don't go by acceptance of a view after deliberation, don't go by the appearance of competence, and don't think the ascetic is our respected teacher. But when you know for yourselves, these things are skillful, blameless, praised by the wise, and when you undertake them, they lead to welfare and happiness, then you should acquire and keep them. That's what I said, and this is why I said it. Right? And then the Buddha continues on into the next section here. Welcome, Gita. That noble disciple is rid of desire, rid of ill will, unconfused, aware and mindful. They meditate, spreading a heart full of love to one direction, and to the second, and to the third, and to the fourth. In the same way, above, below, across, and everywhere, all around, they spread a heart full of love to the whole world, abundant, expansive, limitless, free of enmity and ill will. They meditate, spreading a heart full of compassion to one direction, then to the second, to the third, and to the fourth. In the same way, above, below, across, everywhere, and all around, they spread a heart full of compassion to the whole world, abundant, expansive, limitless, free of enmity and ill will. These are the Brahma Viharas. Metta, translated here as love, often translated as loving friendliness or loving kindness or limitless goodwill. Karuna, translated as compassion. They meditate, spreading a heart full of rejoicing. This is mudita, most often translated as appreciative joy. To one direction, and to the second, and to the third, and to the fourth. In the same way, above, below, across, everywhere, and all around, they spread a heart full of rejoicing to the whole world, abundant, expansive, limitless, free of enmity and ill will. And this is the basic instructions that the Buddha gives in the suttas on how to practice these things. Right? Not to individuals or anything like that, but expanding out to the whole world. This is the same thing with compassion. Right? A little bit of an aside, but people often think, well, compassion means that you see somebody suffering and then you have feelings about that and you want to help them. And that's mundane compassion. That is what that means. But you notice here, the Buddha is talking about compassion with no limits. It's not, this person is compassionate, suffering, and I have compassion for them, and this person is causing suffering, so I have no compassion for them. It's not limited in that way, which is the mundane compassion, the compassion that the average person has. The Buddha's compassion is a transcendent compassion. And so we practice just this way, compassion for all beings. Doesn't matter what they've done or not done or anything like that. Same thing with metta. Doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter if we like them or don't like them or anything like that. We give them metta and compassion and karuna. So, all right, continuing. They meditate, spreading a heart full of equanimity to one direction, and to the second, and to the third, and to the fourth. In the same way, above, below, across, everywhere, and all around, they spread a heart full of equanimity to the whole world, abundant, expansive, limitless, free of enmity and ill will. When the noble disciple has a mind that's free of enmity and ill will, uncorrupted and purified, they've won 4 consolations in this very life. Welcome, Hannah. All right. So, this section here is also a very important section. I wish a monastic actually taught this section, and I heard a Dhamma talk about this years and years and years before I found it by myself. This, in my opinion, is one of the most important sections for like a Westerner or Buddhist convert who is having kind of issues with the whole karma and rebirth thing. Right? There maybe, I don't know. This is actually a quite important section here. It's often compared to something in Christianity called Pascal's wager, where it's kind of a logical way of thinking that leads you to, it's probably better to believe in God. But it's not actually quite like that. I don't know. Years ago, I looked up Pascal's wager, and I knew it because I was raised Catholic too, but it's been quite a while, so I don't remember the specifics. But we're going to go through this and see what the Buddha is saying here. So one who has done this practice, who knows what is skillful, who has practiced the Brahma Viharas, etc., who's developed skillfulness, right? They've won 4 consolations in this very life. So the first one. If it turns out there is another world, i.e., you're born again, etc. And good and bad deeds have results, i.e. karma. Then, when the body breaks up after death, I'll be reborn in a good place, a heavenly realm. This is the first consolation they've won, by developing skillfulness. If it turns out there is no other world, i.e. materialist, meaning when you die, there's nothing, right? If there's no other world and good and bad deeds don't have a result, i.e. your actions don't matter, then in this very life, I'll keep myself free of enmity and ill will, untroubled and happy. This is the second consolation they've won. So this is the Buddha basically saying that this practice is beneficial even if you believe that there's a rebirth and karma, that even if there isn't, even if you are an annihilationist and a materialist and there is nothing at all and your actions don't matter, still doing this practice will be beneficial for you in this very life. That's very powerful. Again, remember, I was a practitioner and a sutta reader for years before I found this. And to hear the Buddha, when I read this and when I heard the Buddha say this, like, wow, this is quite amazing actually. This is exactly what kind of people need to hear. Like, doing this practice, even if you're hung up on karma and rebirth, maybe you don't know, you can just do the practice anyway. If there is karma and rebirth, then you're good. If there's not, then you're good. So don't get hung up on it. Just practice. All right. So now the third one. If it turns out that bad things happen to people who do bad things, then since I have no bad intentions, and since I'm not doing anything bad, how can suffering touch me? This is the third consolation that they've won. So this is related to the karma and rebirth, right? This is related to that our actions have results. It turns out that bad things happen to people who do bad things. So that's what the Buddha is talking about here. If it turns out that bad things don't happen to people who do bad things, i.e. your actions don't matter, there's no karma, etc., then I see myself pure on both sides. So even if it doesn't matter, the fact that I have developed skillfulness, that I'm pure, that will be of benefit. This is the fourth consolation they've won. When that noble disciple has a mind that's free of enmity and ill will, undefiled and purified, they've won these four consolations in this very life. That's so true, Blessed One. That's so true, Holy One. When the noble disciple has a mind that's free of enmity and ill will, undefiled and purified, they've won these four consolations in this very life. Excellent, sir, excellent. We go for refuge to the Buddha, to the teaching, and to the mendicant Sangha. From this day forth, may the Buddha remember us as lay followers who have gone for refuge for life. So in one meeting with the Buddha, they went from utter confusion to becoming Buddhist. Pretty good. All right, and what was the difference? The Buddha led them through their own investigation. He didn't say, this is the right way, just believe it. All the other ones don't even bother with. And it's quite powerful, isn't it? All right. So, now we have time for questions. If you have any questions regarding this, feel free to ask in the chat. Or if anybody here at the monastery has any questions, you're welcome to ask. Let's see. Ryan had kind of a question, but I think I kind of answered it already. So I think I clarified your question there, Ryan. Oh boy, does that mean that I get to retire early today?
They actually have a question.
All right, I guess not. Okay.
I thought maybe you were looking at some other questions.
What's that?
I thought there were other questions, so that's what I was like reading.
Okay.
You had said something about practicing, even if you practice this life, then there's like a benefit in the next life. I didn't really understand what you were talking about. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. So just to read it. You're talking about the first one, right? If it turns out there is another world, so rebirth, and good and bad deeds have a result, i.e. karma, then when the body breaks up after death, okay, no, that's I'll be reborn. Okay, so the next one. If it turns out, no, wait. If it turns out there is no other world and good and bad deeds don't have a result, then in this very life I'll keep myself free of enmity and ill will, untroubled and happy. So what he's saying is that even if it turns out there's literally no karma and rebirth, you're still happy and peaceful and content and free of these things in this very life.
By practicing the Dhamma?
Mm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it says, when the noble disciple has a mind that's free of enmity, ill will, uncorrupted, and purified. Really, he's talking about an arhat, really, at this point. And only an arhat has a purified mind and an uncorrupted mind. But it really works for us as well. We don't have to be purified mind to have the benefits. All right, Ryan is confirming that I answered his question already. Very good. Carolina asks, thank you, which sutta traductors? Is that an iPhone autocorrect? I'm assuming you mean translations. I've never seen that word before, traductors. Which sutta translations do you find reliable? So the two major English translations of the suttas that are in modern day are basically Bhikkhu Bodhi's, and Bhikkhu Bodhi's translations are not all his. They are at least two of the suttas are from previous translations that he added to and edited and all that kind of stuff, and Bhante Sujato's, and they're both trustworthy. but when a translator decides to try to translate a 5,000 page, not one document, but 5,000 pages of ancient text, they have to make certain decisions. And the Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation is highly technically accurate. But he uses words that even myself, as somebody who is very good in English and reading Old English even and knowing big fancy words, when I started reading the suttas, there were a few words I had to look up in the dictionary because I had no idea. I had never heard them ever in my life. So Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation is probably the most technically accurate, but it's also harder for the average person to kind of understand. You look up sankaras and you see mental formations and you're like, what the heck is a mental formation? Now, Bhante Sujatos he went into this intentionally trying to translate in ways that would be a bit more understandable for the average person. And in large part, he succeeded. There's a few things that the way he chooses to translate things that I would disagree with, but I'm not a senior monastic or well-versed translator, so it doesn't matter for me. But in my own community on the Discord, when we read suttas every week, we mostly read Bhante Sujato's translation because it is the only freely available, fully translated document of the suttas in existence. Bhikkhu Bodhi's is not freely available because it is behind copyright. Wisdom Publication basically owns his translation of most of the suttas. You can find some of them on Sutta Central, the ones that are not behind copyright. But unfortunately, one of the reasons why I love Bhante Sujato's translation is because it is the only English translation you can read in existence right now, along with the Pali. There is no other place you can do that. So in that regard, access to insight is pretty good, yes, but access to insight is not all of the suttas. Access to insight was invaluable to me in the early days of Buddhism, before Sutta Central. Access to insight was my go-to site for years and years and years, but it doesn't have all of the suttas. It's not like a full translation. So still a great website, but if you want all of the suttas, even he has an updated one, dharmatalks.org, I think it's called. But yeah, so even Ajahn Jeff's translations are good too. I have no problem with them. As a matter of fact, I prefer his translation for metta, because I think it is not love or loving kindness. I think those are horrible translations for metta, especially with the connotations of love in English. So I prefer his translation of metta, right? So it's one of those things where, like, as you read, as you get to know the teachings and the suttas and all that stuff, you'll say, okay, well, actually, I think this translation is best, right? And it doesn't mean that this translation is the only translation, although all other translations are bad. It just means that this particular translator chose to translate this word in this way. And oftentimes when you look in the Pali, you will see they didn't just make it up. It's often in the Pali. It's just like a word like a sankara is complicated enough that you can have 4 different translators choose one aspect of the definition as their translation. So that's what I would say. Bhante, you would think that people in high up positions would have access to this information? What information? Ryan? Um, I know you're obviously responding to something I said, but I don't, I've lost the context. This sutta. Okay. Ah, okay. All right. There is so much unskillful behavior. Let me actually stop sharing the sutta here so we can see this on the larger screen. There we are. There's so much, still so much unskillful behavior being committed. How can we reconcile this lack of understanding? What do you mean, like in Buddhism? In the world in general? I mean, possessed by the three poisons, perhaps? Could you chime in on this, please? So, everything in society is made up of people. And everybody who's not awakened has greed, hatred, and delusion. So if you don't like governments, you don't like corporations, you don't like unions, you don't like monasteries, you don't like whatever group that you don't like, what is it made of? It's made of people with greed, hatred, and delusion. You go to the monastery thinking you're going to escape the world, thinking you're going to escape suffering. The monastery is full of people with greed, hatred, and delusion. Everywhere is greed, hatred, and delusion. It's like one of the things Ajahn Chah says is, like, you can't escape your suffering by getting in a plane, right? Going across the world. It follows you. You can't even go in the middle of the jungle to escape greed, hatred, and delusion. Guess what? It's in you. So there's no escape anywhere in the world from greed, hatred, and delusion. It's everywhere. Because people are everywhere. So when you know this, then you're not surprised. Oh, this scandal. Just some monk in Australia got found out that he was did things with children and stuff like that, and he got convicted. Right? Greed, hatred, and delusion. This politician does this. Greed, hatred, and delusion. Whatever. Everywhere you go. Everything you expect. Actually, what is amazing and rare is when people do good, skillful things. It's like, oh, sadhu, wow, things are really good and skillful. Amazing. Let's try to have more of this in the world. This is the nature of the world. It's full of greed, hatred, and delusion, including in you. You're no better. When you become awakened, then there's a different story. But until that point, you're just another grouping of greed, hatred, and delusion in the world. And so should you expect anything less? No. Right? Unskillful behavior being committed everywhere all the time. But there are also people practicing for awakening, practicing to do good deeds. Right? It's not all just greed, hatred, and delusion. It's just mostly greed, hatred, and delusion. people who in higher up positions have the knowledge of the Kalama Sutta. I'm just a bit confused what you mean by this higher up positions thing. DDS, is the antidote generosity, virtue, and meditation? Ah, yeah, actually. Yeah, Dana Sila Bhavana. I mean, the antidote is the Noble Eightfold Path, but really only for you, not for the world, not for everybody else. Only an individual can develop the path that leads to their own suffering. So, I wouldn't say that people in government or tech have that information either. Do they? I mean, unless they're quite religious or quite practitioners, or they probably don't care much about um, you know skillfulness. And even if you are religious or serious practitioner, you might not also be very skillful either. There's a wonderful sutta called Rulership, where the Buddha is hanging out in the mountain and he's contemplating, could somebody be a leader and not kill or have others kill, right? Or steal and not have others steal, or whatever. The Buddha is contemplating, is there such thing as being a leader and there being just pure skillfulness? Unfortunately, we don't know if the Buddha came to a conclusion, because Mara comes and starts tempting the Buddha. But I would suspect that the answer was probably no. The only exemption maybe would be the wheel turning monarch, but that's about as rare as a Buddha. So it's not going to be a normal thing in the world. Don't be waiting for some wheel turning monarch to come and fix the world. You'd probably be enlightened before that happens. So practice for awakening. Information and wisdom are two different things. Any questions from here? Just double checking. Hello, Carolina. Brian. All right. I'll give it another minute or so, see if any questions pop up, and if not, we'll call it a night. Carolina says the Dalai Lama, maybe? Is what? Like in terms of skillfulness? Maybe. The thing is, even if you're a wise, skillful person, you try to go into some kind of a system by yourself, you're done. You're not going to last long. You're going to become corrupted, or you're not going to be long for the world, one or the other. People keep thinking there's some way we can do it, though. Someone just told me there are 12 people in the world keeping it together. 12 people keeping the world together, or 12 people keeping themselves together, like they're arhants? Maybe I would agree that with the latter. I don't know about the first one. But I also don't delve into specifically about real world stuff. So I'm going to just keep it at that. And it says, is there a technique to help with relaxing your body during meditation? Well, the sitting meditation is designed to relax your body. It's more like you have to kind of let it do that. all of your agitations and your anxieties and your boredoms and everything gets in the way of it. So it's not a technique. The technique is what brings that relaxation to your body. It's the developing the technique over long periods of time and working through all of that extra junk to the point where you can allow and not be, involved in, keeping your body away from calm and tranquility. That's really the hard part. It takes quite a long time. Of course, having a quite like healthy, flexible body, like just some kind of doing some things to make sure that the body has is in good health and less pain and all that. That's helpful too. But there's no quick and easy technique for relaxing your body in meditation. Going once, going twice. All right, I think we're good then. Okay, friends, so the next time I'll be streaming is Friday morning, where we'll be going over mindfulness of death. Very important topic. And then we'll be on again Friday night for monk chat. Okay, so Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy and at ease. Practice well and be well, and may you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again. Have a good night.